Good morning, everyone. This is Sharon and Robert Porter from Trucking in Business. And we have a guest today and also a friend, Desi Wade. He's going to introduce himself to tell us who he is and where he's from. And we're going to get into an interview. This is an interview that we've been waiting to do with our brother here. So without further ado, Desi, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Desi. I'm Desi Wade. I'm owner of Desi DeAndre Wade Inc. Abbreviated, we do DBA as D Wade Logistics. I'm based here. I do business out of Atlanta. My home office is in Climax, Georgia, which is identified on my truck. That's where I'm from. It's in Decatur County. It's also home of the Georgia Bulldogs head coach. So I share that, commonality with him. So that's the short and skinny of who I am.
Well, outstanding. Well, we have Desi on with us today because we want to actually give a owner operator, someone who has several trucks, working out there, a small MC, but we want to give a perspective of what he had to go through in order to get to where he is. And so, Desi, let's talk, bro. Let's talk real here. Now, I know it wasn't easy where you are now and how you got to where you got to. Can we start? What made you, first of all, decide to get in this trucking space? And when you started the trucking space, was you an owner operator operating under someone else's MC, motor carrier, or did you just start off becoming a motor carrier?
Oh no, by no stretch. When I got into the trucking industry, I was really down in a bad situation. I basically had some money saved. It was like they said my last $2, it was my last $20,000, $30,000. And I told my cousin who'd been in the trucking space for like 15, 20 years at the time, I was like, man, I see you able to support yourself and your family through this trucking pretty well. I want to get into it. I think I could do so as well. I don't mind traveling, being ex-military and everything. I like the freedom. I think that'll be a good move for me to make. I said, I'm gonna buy a truck and I need you to coach me through that process. He said, well, if you want me to coach you, you gotta listen to me. I said, no problem, I can listen. Like I said, I'm ex-military, I can follow orders. He said, well, the first thing is, I don't want you to buy no truck. He said, you learn on somebody else's equipment. You go to trucking school. You go to trucking school, you learn the ropes, and you do it that way. A quick omission that I need to highlight, before I went to him, I tried to do it on my own. I had some money. I bought a dually. I was like, oh yeah, man, I'm a car haul, I don't need a CDL. And that's gonna be my way, to enter the transportation business and operate within it. But I didn't have a clue. I didn't have any mentorship. My network was low, other than my cousin, a few other people that I knew who drove. So I failed. The engine blew. I was clueless. I knew to, go to Manheim and a few other sources for, to secure the trucks. It's just I didn't know nothing about weight stations. I didn't know nothing about, legally operating. I didn't know anything in regard to hours of service. I was clueless. So it's interesting that this morning, one of the things I read, and I actually sent it to my son and my daughter, I said that failure is a part of life. Without failure, you'll never learn. And if you never learn, you'll never grow. So like some of the lessons I, obtained in that process was like, I had to recognize, man, this thing bigger than I anticipated. So the next time around, after the engine blew and I had to scrap the, the hot shot venture after probably a month and a half, right? I saw the advice from my cousin, and he was like, "Yeah, if you got a few bucks, man, save that money because you're gonna need it. But go get your CDL." And I went through this school down here in Atlanta called Cat Law. Because I was a veteran, CR England basically sponsored me, for 6 months in return for my CDL school. So I went to CDL school, drove for CR England. Uh, it was nickels. It was pennies on the dollars. But I was paying for that experience. We were going coast to coast. I did. I had a trainer for the first 30 days or so. And I was learning the ropes. And the trucks were. I laugh about it and reminiscing of how that experience went down because for those of you who know, CR England has some of the slowest trucks in the industry. But as a new driver, I was appreciative of that because, man, I would, when they say when you first start, now as you go and you get that experience under your belt, you get a lot more confident and you start taking, you start to match the pedal a little bit harder. But coming out, man, that 61, I wouldn't even give it all the 61 that the trucks had. I would, depending on what, I'm going around a curve, I'm doing what I got to do. I was definitely, cautious, and I'm still cautious, when the road conditions and everything change and, the terrain changes, I'm still cautious and I'm still respectful of, the danger and the hazards involved with operating a vehicle. So I did CRA England. I did after CRA England. I want my own truck. So they big on team. So I went with Warner for a brief stint. I did probably 3 months with Warner, and Warner, they wouldn't give me a new truck. Right? My truck was a 12, and it was like this is probably in the 14, 15. So they wouldn't give me a new truck. And the truck just was like, it was a mess. And I was like, I would always go back with my fleet manager. And I was like, hey, I need another truck. I see everybody else getting new trucks. I want a new truck, And they're like, no, you ain't getting one. And so I was like, okay, I know I'm gonna get a new. And I finally made it in my mind, kind of like when you and I talked about some situations that you experienced during your trucking career, Robert. Really, it's good they didn't give me a new truck because that might would have made me comfortable and it might would have made me stay. But they wouldn't give me a new truck, and I was like, okay. I started, my driving record was good at that time. I'm approaching about 8 months of experience, getting close, gradually walking to that year, and so I started kicking, I started applying for different jobs, and as it would have it, JB Hunt, they was receptive, and they were like, yeah, you could own a truck over here. I'm like, what? That's what I want. That's what I wanted from the start. So needless to say, I made that transition to JB Hunt. I lease purchased the truck. I was supposed to purchase a 15, which would have been about a $90,000 truck with a $10,000 balloon payment on the end. And it didn't require credit. It didn't require a lot of down payments and all those things. But it required my employment with them. The fleet manager that I had there, he was like, man, you new to this. He knew I didn't know a lot. I didn't know, because one thing, like I said at our roundtable that I had to overcome, I had to learn that it was more than just, driving, bumping docks, going from A to B. I thought that's all it was. I come from a background of management in which I had like probably 800 employees. So I was like happy to be alleviated from all that responsibility. And I just would just drive along cruising, at whatever speed that truck would go safely. Because I'm still relatively new at that time. And I was happy. I was like, not a care in the world. I ride. I could go to sleep on my job. I could talk on the phone. I could wear what I want. Life is good. I'm free after the military. I'm free after, my stint, my little vacation or my unexpected vacation. I'm free. Freedom, yes. So so that guy was like, man, I don't want to put you in no $100,000 of debt. I'm looking at him like, I want the new truck. He's like, what I can do, man, I think would be better for you is I got a 2010, I got some older fleet trucks that we're getting rid of, man. It might be better for you. I just wanted a truck and it's my own, it's something that I'm, working toward being my own. So I'm like, no problem. I guess, I'll take your advice on that. Thank God I did, right? Because the $100,000 truck that I was unknowingly and unwillingly contemplating purchasing was an international. And without blasting or offending anybody who owns them, because whatever you own to support yourself and your family, I respect that. But I just know, based on what I've learned up to date, the history, the maintenance history, and the performance history of those internationals aren't the best. So thank God I didn't get that $100,000 international, which was probably $90,000 overpriced, in my humble opinion. Thank God I didn't get that truck. I got 2010 with about 450,000 miles on it for $19,000. My payment was like $1,600 a month, and it was affordable. I was, lease purchasing, and I remember they would give you the option. They would like let you do miles, or they would let you do percentages. So initially I took miles, but one thing I was smart enough to do is communicate with other, lease purchase owner operators. And I say, hey, what is it best to do? Miles or percentages? They were like, what, are you slow? I'm like, nah, I just legitimately don't know. They're like, percentages, bro. You don't want to chase the miles, You don't want to chase those miles because you will be running like, So I switched over to percentages and, real quick in that process, through communicating with other people who were in situations like me, lease purchase, owner operators, I learned how to operate the load boards. I learned how to ensure that wherever I was being sent to, because they'll send you where they need that freight delivered, and you'll sit there for days. I learned after having that happen to me a time or two, I learned to ask the question. Yeah, you sending me to Louisiana. What's my backhaul? You got me a backhaul out of there? Because the great thing about it was no forced dispatch. And so I was like, you got me a backhaul out of there? And they're like, oh yeah, we working on it. I'm working on not going there until you get me a backhaul. So I learned, concepts and processes like that. Because that was very frustrating having to sit and you're not making any money while you're sitting, and they scrambling and struggling. You didn't scramble to send me in there, so you shouldn't have to scramble to get me out. So I learned that concept. Another thing they had was a maintenance escrow that they required you to have. But you could either do a warranty or you could do a maintenance escrow. Initially, I didn't know the history of that truck. I didn't know if they sold me a lemon or whatever. So after, a few months of owning the truck, I said, it's pretty reliable. And so I started, as opposed to paying into the warranty, because when something would break on it, they would fix it. It was my own money. But they would fix it, but they was using salvage parts. They wasn't using new parts. They were going the cheapest route. You know what I mean? And again, through communication with other, owner operators or what have you, I began to understand that, hey, I could do that myself. Like you put the money in the escrow, and as you need it, you buy tires. Your choice of tires, from the source, you would get their discounts or what have you. And it was just really educational and learning that. Initially, I was like more leaning on the company as if I was a company driver. But as I learned to gradually obtain knowledge on how things really work, I was able to do more myself and operate more independently. Um, so I started, just putting the money in the escrow, but buying it out. Sometime when my money was short, and I wanted to take a little extra time off, I say, hey, keep it at a certain level, and get me a little extra to take me and the children on vacation. So that was good, and it was definitely great management tools, teaching me the business aspect of it. Um, and so it kind of prepared me. Um, Without naming every company, over a 5-year period from there, because this was in my first 9 months that I started, being an owner operator. I paid that truck off in a year because they were trying. I was about 10 months in, and the wintertime hit. And like I said, I'm one of those truck drivers who's never put on chains, right? So, and I'm from the South. I've lived in Alaska. I've lived in some cold places, but that was by orders of Uncle Sam, not by choice of Desi. So when the winter hit, I would always look at the weather before accepting a load. And at that point, 10 months of working for JB Hunt, I learned how to manipulate their load boards. I learned how they'll give you like 3 choices. You go this way, that way, or that way, and they'll show you the prices in which the loads were paid. And I'd always look at the weather. I look at, what freight do I have coming out of that market? And in doing so, I was like, the winter hit and they were trying to send me some places. I was like, no, I ain't going there. I'll go here. And they were like, that wasn't one of your 3 choices. I was like, yeah, but I saw it on your load board, right? They like, okay. We'll give you that. We'll give you that. So I realized that shoe, kind of like I mentioned to you one time, Robert. At this point, I was starting to outgrow my shoes. So your shoes, start becoming uncomfortable. It's time for you to change shoes. It's time for a change, right? So I paid them. I used money in my escrow to pay off the remainder of those. It's probably $3,000-4,000 I owed at that time because I was 2 months away from. It was 1 year contract for like $19,000, and I had a $1 balloon at the end, so that was a $1 walk away. So definitely, they showed me favor. They definitely did right by me because all lease opportunities are not the same. And the sad reality is probably 30 to 40% of those who start them actually finish. The rest, the truck goes back to, it returns back to the starting point. But so that worked to my favor, and it'll let me, obtain ownership of a big way to earn money, which is a truck. And so I moved on to companies that worked in the Southeast region. I had my understanding. I had, just everything working for me. So I was running, Southeast, Southwest. That was working great for me. I had my weather conditions. I was, making good money, you know, $2,000-3,000 a week. That was great money for me. And it's definitely higher than, the average earners, in the US. So again, I have gratitude to the transportation and logistics industry for allowing me, to earn a living, in which I could be proud of and support myself and my family. So from that regard, it's just appreciation. But I found, but you good can always get better. So I found probably about 4 years going into the 5th year in the game, I found a company. They're like, you can be home every day and make that money. I'm like, what? So it was a company right here in Atlanta called Brown. I I I started working for Brown, and I was home, and I was making pretty much the same $2,000-3,000, and you know, it was pretty good situation. Around that time, um, my first truck that I bought, I got up probably 700,000-800,000 miles by that time frame, and I was like, man, it would get all kind of cold, sit to the, my engine, what have you. I'm like, man, she about to go out. It's about to be, we coming to the end of the road. I guess it's taking me as far as it's gonna take me. In which, I was appreciative because for $19,000, I earned that 20 times over. So that was a good investment on my part. So again, money was all right, but it wasn't, all of that, because the misconception about trucking is it's not a get rich industry. Some do, but those are, the small percentiles, 5 to 10%, best case scenario. Most people, they earn a good living, but it's still kind of check to check, regardless of whether you're working for a company, working for yourself. Because I know a lot of times when I was purchasing my truck, I could have made that same money as a company driver, but it was just the freedom to be able to say I didn't have to ask for a weekend off or any particular days off. Um, I had the freedom, but the freedom it's relative from the perspective. My bills would tell me when it's time to go back on the road, right? So I was semi-free, I was quasi-free, but I wasn't totally free. Because freedom, if I had a freedom of choice, my money would be right, and I'd be like, I ain't driving no truck, I don't even want to see a truck. But definitely I was able to, just manage my schedule and manage my time like that. And for the most part, I would stay out. I would definitely run 20, 25 days a month, because I was trying to, stack my money, and stay ahead of the bills. Um, During that time, again, like I was saying, I noticed, the first truck I had was starting to malfunction. I was like, instead of using the, little $5,000 or $10,000 that I got saved to put down on a truck, which in all honesty wouldn't have been enough, because you need 15 to 20%, even before the prices got inflated, you needed 15 to 20%, because I at least purchased from a company, a carrier, as opposed to an actual, what is it? Dealership, yeah, good point, good call. It didn't show that I'd ever purchased a truck. So it was like, I made payments, I did it. It doesn't count. If you did it from a carrier versus a dealership, it don't count. So I was fortunate enough to Kenworth MHC had a first time buyer program in which you had to put $5,000 down, and it was a lease purchase. You still was going to, own the truck. But it wasn't like leasing from a carrier. It's leasing from an actual, dealership. So I took advantage of that. But the funny part and the twist on that is, I was like, well, I own the Freightliner, the 2010 Freightliner that I got from JB Hunt. I was like, I could just pawn the title and get $10,000, and I have enough to pay my down payment, and do everything I want to do. And so I did. And when I did that, the truck started acting right. The first truck started acting right. So that was my scaling. That was my scale. I scaled up from one truck to, two. And I still have the initial truck in my fleet. It's getting overhauled, but yeah, it's still in my fleet. But yeah, that was my scaling. And then sometimes you do things on your own. Like sometimes you go jogging on your own, sometimes you're running from the bear. You know what I mean? So sometimes your choice is yours, sometimes it ain't. You just have to run, you know, and I say that to say me scaling up really let me see, me getting another truck really let me see like I could use one truck to kind of pay my bills and, you know, cover expenses. And then, you know, the other one would allow me to kind of, you know, actually be real profit. So I was like, hey man, it's all right. And you know, I found a driver. It wasn't as hard as it seems to be now. But yeah, it wasn't as hard as it seemed to be now because I was still leased on and internally they would have people like say maybe their truck had broke or they would have, mechanical problems. And they would say, hey, they needed a truck to operate in that truck, that company. At a couple of times when I needed my truck had mechanical problems, they would let me rent one from, them because they wanted their freight moved. They stopped doing that. And there were people, like on the sideline, so to speak. And I got my first driver I got internally because this equipment had just failed and it wasn't no timeline on when it was coming back. So he was my first driver. I remember him like, it was yesterday. His name was Roy. And Roy, one thing about Roy, he loved his wife. Right. So, and great thing about having employees is that I'd had soldiers in the Army. Like I said, I'd had up to probably real facts, 800 employees. So I had those management skills, but I kind of had put them in the closet and kind of buried them in one of the, my chest. But I was like, wow, now I gotta like pull them back out. And what I ended up doing when definitely when I brought on employees, I kind of switched from being a solopreneur to more of a true entrepreneur, in which I had employees in which I was responsible for. It was just a whole HR. It was just a whole multitude of things that came along with it. I was like, okay, but the good thing about it was that I was still leased on to somebody, so that company did a lot of things for me that was hidden. But at the beginning of my 6th year, I had the brazen idea, like everybody has been in my ear the whole time, just telling me numbers, and the numbers were good. They were telling me numbers like, man, you could make so much more money if you had your own authority. Well, I had my own authority from when I had the dually, but of course it went bad because it was activated in 14 and it was killed in 14, right? Right. So um, I was kind of scared. So I had a cousin and he had an authority he had since like 2005. I said, whoa, man, I did a little homework and what have you. And I was like, I'll be able to get whatever load I want with that. And he was like, hey, cuz, can I just run under your authority and I'll pay all the costs and, we'll run it like that. I said, yeah, just, give me, 5-10% and we cool. Yeah, good, run it. I'm good with that. So it sounded good, but in reality, he had it since '05, but much like mine since 14, it had been inactive because he didn't have any insurance to it. So it was just, yeah, it was good, but we had to do a reactivation letter and all that good stuff. And a couple of companies, worked with me and not make me wait the 90 days. I was like, man, I kind of could have did this myself. And but I went through that process. He and I ran together for a year. And in that time frame, I took the steps I learned. I learned to count on somebody else's authority because it was a lot. It was a whole different world, honestly, because I had been protected and shielded by being leased on. I was paying like, 20, 25%. I was only getting 80% of the load, but they did a lot of things behind the scenes that I was unaware of, like compliance, your IRP, your IFTAs, I got out here on my own. I'm like, people hit me up like, what is this? So that's around that time is when I kind of like got on Clubhouse. I'm guessing that was because I just had my 1 year anniversary. So that was somewhere December 2020. And in that time, right as I was getting my own authority, a lot of companies like Stevenson, I can't even remember the one up in Indiana that went out of business, but a lot of companies were going out of business. And I'm like, oh my goodness, I might have ran on a burning building without any protection, you know? Like, I'm like, if these big companies going out of business, it might be time for me to find something else to do. But as you all know, in the trucking industry, the pandemic brought um, unseen profitability to the industry. And from that perspective, I was definitely able to find myself on good footing. It was still a learning curve because you were operating at risk without knowing and doing all the things from a compliance perspective and just knowing how to, do everything administratively. I knew how to drive, but from, the administrative standpoint, it was a big learning curve. So again, I leaned on Clubhouse. Clubhouse was like, it was extremely popular at the time. I could never get a question in the big groups that was there. So I kind of started my own. I started my own group. And sad to say, I guess some of the feedback I heard, your group got so big that we couldn't get a question in and we started our own group. I said, well, if the shoe don't fit, you must have quit. So and that's kind of how that went. Currently, basically when you could run one truck, when you run one effectively, efficiently, you're able to, add on from that, because you kind of know your numbers, you kind of know you have a baseline of what it is, you need to make it. You understand your fuel consumption, you understand your IFTAs, you start to understand things by and by. But I'm glad, I'm kind of winding up now. I'm glad that I took a gradual approach over the years of really learning the business, learning the inner workings from weight stations to maintenance cycles, freight cycles, how freight moves, seasonally. It will walk through the Midwest. It'll be okay in different places, based on what time of the year we were in. And during the dead period, right after the holidays, I learned about all that. So I was a student of the game, kind of like that 4 year college before you try to declare for the NFL, because I declared myself for the draft. I actually stayed an extra year, so I declared for my motor carrier and operating authority in that 5th year, and it's working out okay. I currently, like I was saying, I have 4 trucks of my own, and I have 1 truck leased on to me. Out of that 5 truck operation, 3 are on the road and 2 are in the shop. So the maintenance, the instability of keeping drivers, finding them and keeping them, that's been challenging. But overall, it's been definitely a great way to support myself and my family. This gave me freedom of managing my own schedule, my own time. And it requires a lot of self-discipline, um, motivation, because nobody's gonna say you don't have any cheerleaders, you don't have anybody just, you know, the FMCSA and the DOT people aren't just calling saying, hey, you might want to look out. We've got some blitzes going on, and make sure you got all your documentation ready. They don't do it like that. You're on your own. It's a real cutthroat world. I I'm glad to see more unity in the industry now, as demonstrated through our connection. And there's definitely a lot more education going on in the industry. Um, so there's definitely a lot of good change that's came about that lets people have the opportunity to thrive and survive in this industry. You got to keep safety at the forefront of everything you do. And you definitely got to you got to keep your mind open to education and growth, because things are always changing. What was law in 17 ain't law here in 2022. So change is the only thing to stay the same. Network. Open yourself to opportunities by, filling out those carrier packets. Still open to get my first contract, which, although it might not be the same amount of money as the spot freight market, it will be consistent money, and that's really my goal, to get a long-term contract. I have the understanding that it takes, you got to have your equipment, you got to have drivers, you got to have everything in place to do that. One of the missing components that I wish I'd have obtained along the way of my growth is trailers. I operated, and I still do operate, totally. Either I would lease a trailer, or I would operate 100% in the power only capacity. I wish I had trailers of my own, so that's been the missing element of me actually getting a contract. So I'm back to the drawing board, so much so that I'm considering liquidating a truck or two to obtain, some trailers. But at the end, you got to have both. You just got to stay at it, man. It's not an easy job, but it's a very satisfying job. You definitely got to operate it as a business. It's a blue collar job, but you got to have a white collar mentality. You got to be a professional. Although you supposedly work for yourself, you can't just talk to the shippers and receivers any kind of way. People won't, they'll not do business with you. You have to be on time. You have to, you gotta still employ best business practices so that you can stay in business. And that's been my journey, man. And again, 7 years, going into my 8th year of trucking. It's been a journey, but I like it. I'll continue to do it for a few more before I pass the gavel on to the next generation. And that's me in a nutshell.
Absolutely. It sounds like you have taken us through the journey of the proper way that you should go, as in getting into the trucking industry. You may be someone that decide to, you might be working, as a company driver, and the year after you say, well, I want to get my own truck and my own authority. And that's really not the proper way of doing it, because there's certain things that you need to learn, as you mentioned, as far as, you went from company driver to lease owner to a owner operator, and now you're a fleet owner. So that's basically the proper way that you should go, because it was things that you had to learn with coming up through those ranks. So that's definitely a lesson learned, that the new truck drivers that are coming up, or coming out rather, that want to eventually own their own fleet, is certain things that they need to learn, not only based on driving, but the business aspect of it as well.
Well, see, what I'm hearing, and what a lot of people need to understand, there's two components.
Mm-hmm.
There is the administrative component that needs to be dealt with, and then there's the operation side of dealing with that truck. So there's two components. If one cannot work without the other. So until you understand how they work, you put yourself in an environment to learn how they work so you can work it. So That's why a lot of people, when they come out, they say, "Oh, I'm gonna buy a truck and I'm going to go do this." One of the wisest things that your cousin has said to you: don't buy a truck. Go work for someone else. Learn the truck first. Learn what it takes to run the truck. Learn what it takes in order to fuel a truck. Learn the process that you need to go through in order to deal with that truck. Then once you learn the truck, then you can take and start focusing on the business aspect of it. What does it take in order for you to have your IFTAs and go through certain things that you need to do? So Desi, I just I commend uh I commend you on the process, because realistically that's the process that we have. But see, with us, we have another aspect of things that we was dealing with. So we couldn't focus on the operation of the truck and the administrative side of the truck, moving into I want to say our own MC, until we get certain things in order. So man, I appreciate this conversation that we having, and the actually the interview that we having with you, man. I appreciate that, because now we understand if somebody wants to get in this business, we're not saying don't get in it. We're saying take the proper channels in order to do.
Take your time.
And take your time. Don't be so in a hurry. That's what, you mentioned some key words. Mentoring. You need to find a mentor. You need to find somebody that you can go to and talk to about certain things. Then you mentioned another key element, investigating certain things. You have to investigate certain things. In other words, you can't just always take somebody's word for granted. You had to go and search it out for yourself.
Do your due diligence.
Do your due diligence behind it. Thank you. So, it was some very key points that you brought out that is just awesome, man. It's gold nuggets. And man, we appreciate your time, bro. We really do. And thanks for coming on Trucking and Business and helping us help these drivers, man. And that mission that you on, we in there together.
Definitely.
Yeah, you also mentioned based on mindset, education, and growth. That's what I got out of you saying that based on mindset. You need to educate yourself. You need to continually grow, because there's a lot of moving parts to this industry. So yeah, you definitely. I believe this is going to educate anyone that listens to this video.
Hey, family, I want to just bring out one additional point and component. Like what we're doing, and no self-promoting or nothing. It don't have to be Trucking Breakfast Club or Trucking Business. But what we did, having networks and having people volunteering their time, man, tap in and tie into that. Like I said, I wish I'd had access to mentors like yourself at the beginning of my journey. It probably wouldn't have took me 5, almost 6 years to get started on my own. You definitely have to get that information. Get the information, develop yourself a plan. Like we said, when you get those mentors and people providing you advice, research everything. Like Sharon said, do your due diligence, and then you got to execute it. Put timetables. I see, like Sharon, we were talking about Josh Henry at Apex Energy. He was saying he give himself 6 months to transition from one aspect of business to another. And he's really being successful with that. And I applaud him. But, his time frame and my time frame aren't the same. And that's what people entering the industry have to understand. They got to move at their own pace. People learn differently. People are taking on different ventures, different niches inside the industry. So if you're doing hazmat, you can't move the same way that I operate a dry van with, or I operate power only. It's just, You gotta learn the game, find your niche, and man, make sure you check all the boxes. Like they say with Santa Claus, make your list and check it twice. And be ready to update it because change is part of it. And you're gonna have some unexpected moments, no matter how prepared you are. So you really gotta just have that emergency fund. Just prepare, and execute, and just continuously review, look for improvement. Continuous improvement is something you should always be looking at. Like, I did good, I might have made, let's just say I might have made 20K a month, 30K, but what could I do to improve? Did we do everything? Did we execute without a flaw? And 99 times out of 100, you didn't. You'll have that rare instance just because, like, if you do everything right, but you couldn't plan for a blowout. And it ain't like we're able to change 18-wheeler tires. So it's, what I mean? It's not like everybody has the ingenuity, the quick thinking to go to a TA and get somebody to readjust the load when they've been loaded improperly, and they're going the people who load you are gone for the weekend, and you got some time frames to make, and you could sit there and wait, but you're not gonna get paid if you don't move. So it's in your best interest to keep it moving, but you got to be able to think. You got to be able to adapt and overcome, obstacles and unplanned situations. So that's another key component. And again, like I said, a lot of people through Clubhouse and other, social media platforms, they're sharing their lesson learned. And that kind of like, it helps people navigate. It helps people somewhat expedite the process, but you got to pay your dues. You still got to put them boots on the ground, hands on the wheel, and see how I learn. It ain't like you can watch a YouTube video. So I see how Team Porter doing it. I could do the same thing. Don't quite work that way. You gotta, have that hands-on experience, that field experience. Um, That'll make life a lot, less painful for you.
Well, that is so true, Desi, and it's a learning curve. And the thing is, one thing that you must understand within this industry, you can't stop learning. If you stop learning, you're going to fail. So in other words, if you fail the plan, that means the plan going to fail you. So you got to continually put yourself in a position that you got to continually learn and put yourself around people that's going to promote you. So that's one of the things that I do like about the platforms and stuff they have out, because you can find like-minded people that can promote you. You don't need to get around someone that's going to take from you. You need to get around someone that's going to add to you. So that's a very key point as far as your success is concerned, especially within this industry. So if you lock into that and be able to recognize certain aspects of your development and of your growth, realizing you don't know everything. I've been in this industry, me and her both, for over 40 years, and it's a lot I don't know. But yet, one thing that I can commend, that got us where we are right now, is that we always remain teachable. And with that, it takes out a lot of frustration, aggravation, and then it also teaches you how to expound on your own gift. So some of us have gifts to teach. Some of us shouldn't be teaching at all. So yeah.
That reality.
Some of us have ways to get that can figure out to get out of a wet paper bag, but some of them can't. Some of us need help in that wet paper bag to be able to show us how to get out of it. So we all have different gifts, different different abilities and different talents. And so we need to learn how to, coming out in this, you need to know where your weaknesses are, and you need to know where your strengths are. And the only way that can happen is that if you surround yourself with people that can push you, will push you forward. So that can help, you tremendously, especially in this trucking industry. So Mr. Wade, we really appreciate your time today. We really do. So any closing remarks? Because I know you got a business to run, and so we don't want to hold you up much longer.
Yeah, I agree. And definitely, man, the pleasure was all mine to be in the presence of such wonderful people that I consider family. Like you said, man, be humble and you'll be exalted. Stay down till you come up, don't be don't be fearful, but definitely, be prepared. You got to prepare yourself and connect, just be connected. Don't be an island, stay connected to everybody. You'll be just fine. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, so with that being said, we ask that, you guys, you can always follow us on Clubhouse, and we'll put the link below. We'll put Desi's link below as well. That you could actually, he has a Clubhouse room, the Trucking Breakfast Club, that we participate in regularly on Mondays and Fridays at 9 a.m. on Clubhouse. And like I said, we'll put the link below. And then of course, he helps, he gets into our rooms regularly as well too on Trucking and Business on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. East Coast, and both for East Coast time. So, we always say to one another, and we always say to people in the rooms that we control, is that we're not in competition, and we learn from Desi learn from us, so, that's what it's all about for all of us to succeed. So did you have anything else you wanted to add, Robert?
No, I'm pretty well. Like I said, I don't want to tie him up much longer because I know he have things he has to do, and so do we.
Business to run.
Yeah, so do we. So but he's a wealth of information. So then the thing about it, one of the things that I really like about this brother, he's so down to earth.
Mm-hmm.
He's a wonderful person to connect with. So I guess in saying that, it's back to you, sweetie. So
okay, well, with that being said, we'll say, thank you for tuning in to Trucking and Business. Definitely, like I said, follow us on Clubhouse. Come out on Clubhouse, and if you have any questions, you can come out and come up on the stage and ask. So with that being said, we say so long and be safe.